So a couple of days ago, I got interested in Kerbal science. So for those of you who don't know, Kerbal Space Program, or KSP for short, is a rocket flying slash space program simulator that is, um, I don't want to say very realistic, but it's a lot more realistic than anything else out there. And I wanted to see how their science and how advanced they are matches up to us both before and after their space program launched. How advanced they are may surprise you. So to start off, this is pretty much the most basic rocket you have in the game. It has a capsule, a parachute, and a solid fuel booster at the bottom. First, you'll ignite the booster. When it runs out of fuel, you put out the parachute so that you fall. I'm also going to add a little bit of science in because this is a new career world that I would just like to have some resources in without throwing away my money. So I started a new world so that we could gauge what the speed records are, because as you pass certain records like height, altitude, getting to other planets, you get a little bit of reward and a notification saying that. So we're going to see how actually fast that this first record is and how high it is as well. So I'm lift up just a few seconds after we've actually got our first milestone, and we're going to find out. Unfortunately, you can't find out how this is, what the height is, what the record is until after you land. However, I'm just going to speed this up here because it takes about 5 minutes for a launch, and I don't think that you want to sit all the way through that. Back on the ground, we can see how well that we did. Turns out it's about 25 meters per second is our first record. This is not very fast. To give you some context, the average sailfish moves faster than this. The average sailfish moves at 68 miles per hour. We were going under 68 miles per hour, so that's not very advanced. However, now we can take a look at after the space program has started. These are some of the later tech trees items that you can get. The first one is a ore scanner that allows you from orbit to survey the ground. Next up, we have the IRSU, which is, or the Convertotron. We do have something like this. It's called the ISRU, and it is used to process ores to make fuel. And then we also have reaction wheels, which are used to turn stuff in space using big spinning wheels, which are why they're called reaction wheels. And we have one of the probe cores here, which in Kerbal Space Program has a pretty advanced artificial intelligence system for self-piloting and navigation. So let's see how these things hold up to their real-world counterparts. Here I have a small rocket launched with the actual prospector thing that is not a ZMAP satellite launch kit that comes with the stock game. Strapped on with the sensor, absolutely not. That would be unacceptable. However, besides that, I do want to take a note about the AI as we come up. Faster than light communication is impossible, and for practical reasons, the Kerbal Space Program doesn't all exist. When you're taken away from a satellite link, you have to go to kind of the AI mode where you don't have advanced control, but you can fire the rockets and you can maneuver it to predefined points on the nav ball. However, it's in some ways more advanced than ours, in some ways not. It is more advanced than ours in the fact that it has a human brain powering it, obviously. However, it's not as advanced as ours, as it can't turn to specific vectors. So this is a little bit of a strange one. On the other hand, the resource scanner here, which you can see right there, is actually something that does exist. In fact, one's been launched kind of recently in the past month or so, called Arcid 6, which was launched by Planetary Resources and was a CubeSat designed for testing prospecting technologies for asteroids, actually, in fact, but they used it on Earth, and they show that you can detect resources on the surface from space using an imager. So this is possibly something that we'll actually see fairly soon. The ISRU, on the other hand, is something that doesn't really exist. Not in our world. It can be done, but it just hasn't been done, mostly because there hasn't been a need for it. But it's looking more and more like astronauts that will eventually land on Mars will need their own source of fuel so that they can reduce the weight load supply. So we are working on this. This did work. And in Kerbal Space Program, it's not any more advanced really than ours. In fact, it's fairly inefficient. It took me 150 days roughly of just sitting and mining and then refining to just get a little burst of fuel, as you'll see in just a second. I got from all that a little 3 or 4 second burst of fuel. So it does exist. It's a lot more realistic than I'd say a lot of other things in Kerbal Space Program, but it definitely is possible in our world and in Kerbal Space Program. The last thing that we have is reaction wheels. Reaction wheels do also exist. We use them. They're not just possible though. We actually use them on the Hubble Space Telescope. They're used when you need more fine adjustments, where you don't want to disturb like the image per se, by using reaction control thrusters, which are basically micro rockets that fire to maneuver a spacecraft. However, Kerbal Space Programs seem to violate the laws of physics in that you can move entire rockets with these. They're not actually that strong, but they are useful. In fact, some realism mods change this, but they're definitely useful for space telescopes, and we use those. So interestingly enough, it turns out that the Kerbal Space Program, Kerbals, are pretty weak technologically compared to us before it started. But after their space program started, it kicked up, and they actually have perhaps a little bit more than our abilities in technological terms. Hey guys, thanks for watching through the whole thing. I hope you would like to watch another video, or subscribe. That would really help me out right now, and thanks again for watching through the whole thing.